I want you to do something for me right now. Wherever you are commuting, at the gym, walking the dog just for a second, I want you to close your eyes. Now imagine you are clinging to a sheer cliff face in the Swiss Alps. You are thousands of feet up. The wind is howling in your ears, a deafening roar that it drowns out your own breath. Your fingers are freezing, they're numb inside your gloves, and you can feel the rough, cold granite scraping against your cheek. Your heart is hammering against your ribs. It's terrifying, it's exhilarating, and it is completely undeniably real.
That is a very intense way to start a morning.
Stick with me here. Now, snap your fingers and switch gears. Imagine you're walking on the surface of the moon. But here's the catch: no spacesuit, no heavy oxygen tank, just you, strolling through the gray regolith dust, looking back at a tiny blue marble called Earth suspended in the black void. You feel the lightness of the gravity, the silence of the vacuum. Or let's get even weirder. Let's get biological. Imagine you are a shark.
A shark?
A shark? You are swimming through a coral reef. You aren't just seeing it, you are it. You feel the water rushing over your gills, a sensation no human being has ever actually felt because, we don't have gills. You feel the electrical signals of prey hiding in the sand. You hunch it down, you catch it, and you physically feel the satisfaction of digesting it in a quiet underwater cave.
That is a very specific and, frankly, slightly disturbing image.
Right.
But effective.
It is, isn't it? But here is the kicker, and this is the premise of our entire conversation today. While you were the shark, while you were on the moon, while you were freezing in the Alps, you never left your chair, you haven't moved a single muscle. And yet to your brain, to the electrical impulses firing in your skull, every single one of those experiences was indistinguishable from reality. We aren't talking about a video game here. We aren't talking about a headset you strap on to play table tennis in your living room. We are talking about the ultimate escape. Today, we are unpacking Stanislaw Lem's concept of phantomatics, specifically from his seminal work, Summa Technologiae.
And this is where we have to be very careful with our terms right from the start. Because when most people hear virtual reality or simulation, they think of entertainment, they think of escapism, or maybe the metaverse, or, putting on goggles to watch a 3D movie. But Lem, writing this decades ago in the 1960s, was thinking about something far more profound. He wasn't just exploring a technology, he was exploring a gnosiological problem.
Gnosiological. That is a massive word to drop in the first 2 minutes. Let's unpack that right off the bat so no one gets left behind.
It comes from the Greek gnosis, meaning knowledge. Gnosiology is the study or theory of knowledge. How do we know what is true? How do we distinguish fact from illusion? Lem's vision of the Phantomatic Machine isn't just about tricking the eyes. It's about a fundamental disconnection between perception and truth. We're going to look at his vision of a machine that creates a reality so perfect, so responsive, that it becomes a trap you might never be able to escape or even realize you're in.
It sounds like science fiction, but the way Lem writes about it, it feels less like a novel and more like a warning label for a product that hasn't been invented yet. We are going to dive into exactly how this machine works, the mechanics of the illusion. Then we'll get into the philosophical traps it sets for us. And finally, we're going to tackle the really dark question of whether a civilization could actually survive inventing this kind of technology.
It is the ultimate test of human consciousness.
Yeah.
Are we defined by our physical reality or just by the inputs our brain receives?
So let's get into the nuts and bolts. We need to understand the mechanism before we can understand the nightmare. This brings us to section 1, the Phantomatic Machine. Lem makes a huge distinction here. He says this is more than just VR. It's about a feedback loop.
Correct. And this distinction is vital. If you think about a movie, you are a passive observer. You sit in the dark, you watch, you listen, but you don't influence the action. The hero jumps off the building whether you scream or not. Even in a modern video game, your interactions are limited to what the controller allows. Press X to jump, press Y to shoot. You are pushing buttons to influence the screen. But Lem defines phantomatics as a true bidirectional connection. It's a closed loop between the human and the machine.
Bidirectional meaning strictly two-way traffic.
Exactly. The machine sends sensory inputs to the human sight, smell, touch, balance, temperature. It completely hijacks the sensory nerves. It disconnects you from your real eyes and ears and plugs directly into the optic and auditory nerves.
And the human reacts.
And this is the crucial part. The human brain sends muscle impulses, say, the impulse to turn your head or reach out your hand or run away from a monster. The machine intercepts those impulses before they move your actual biological body. It reads the intent, stops the physical movement so you don't thrash around in the chair, and uses that data to instantly alter the reality it's feeding you.
So let's make this concrete. If I try to grab a virtual apple, the machine feels my brain say, grab. It creates the visual of my hand moving, and then, this is the magic part, it creates the tactile sensation of the cool, waxy apple skin against my finger.
Precisely. And it creates the resistance of the apple's weight in your hand. And it has to happen in the fraction of a second it takes for your nerve impulse to travel. The machine essentially has to race your own nervous system.
Lem talks about this anticipation problem, which I found fascinating because it highlights why this is so much harder than just rendering a 3D movie.
Yep.
The machine can't have a pre-written script, right? Because it has absolutely no idea what I'm going to do next.
Exactly. It's impossible to predict every user action. If you are standing in a virtual throne room of an ancient pharaoh, the machine doesn't know if you're going to look at the throne or look at your feet or suddenly spin around to check the wall behind you. It cannot be a pre-recorded movie. It has to be a generative reality.
Generative meaning it creates the world on the fly, pixel by pixel, sensation by sensation.
Yes. Think about your peripheral vision right now. You aren't really focusing on what's behind you. The machine doesn't need to render the room behind you until you start to turn your head. But the moment you do, the millisecond your neck muscles fire, it must instantly generate that reality. It has to adapt plastically to your curiosity.
That's a great word for it, plastic. Malleable. It shapes itself to my gaze.
If you decide to lean in and smell a flower, the scent has to be there instantly. If you decide to punch the guard has to bleed, his head has to snap back, he has to grunt in pain. The causality must be perfect.
And Lem emphasizes that this world must strictly obey the laws of physics, gravity, optics, material resistance, to feel real. If I drop a cup, it has to shatter exactly how a cup would shatter. If the physics are off, even by a hair, the illusion breaks.
Unless, of course, you want to be a wizard.
Well, yeah, I mean, who doesn't? If I'm plugging into the Matrix, I want to fly.
And Lem acknowledges that. He mentions that the game parameters can allow for magic, like floating or flying or shooting fireballs. But the baseline experience, the feeling of being there, relies on a perfect replication of cause and effect. Your brain knows how the world works. If you push against a wall and your hand goes through it, your brain rejects the reality. If you fly, you still need to feel the wind resistance and the sensation of acceleration, or it feels fake.
The range of experiences he describes is just wild. We mentioned the shark thing in the intro. That one stuck with me because it's biologically bizarre. You aren't just changing your location, you're changing your species, you're changing your sensory apparatus.
It speaks to the total sensory override. You could inhabit the body of an eagle, feeling the air currents under your wings. You could inhabit the body of a microscopic organism.
But he also talks about historical immersion. You can be Pharaoh Amenhotep. You can lead a medieval charge in full armor, feeling the weight of the steel, the sweat dripping down your back, the impact of the lance hitting a shield.
Or the narrative fulfillment. This is where it gets ego-driven. You can win a Nobel Prize and have the King of Sweden shake your hand.
Yeah.
You can have a passionate, torrid romance with Madame de Pompadour. You can duel Iago to avenge Othello. It caters to every level of human desire. Power, lust, curiosity, violence.
There's a psychological aspect to that list, isn't there? It's not just seeing things, it's about validation. There's a line where he mentions, you can be a prophet with a guarantee that all your prophecies come true. That is such a specific, ego-stroking fantasy.
It speaks to the seductive nature of the machine. Reality is disappointing. It's unpredictable. You work hard and you don't get the promotion. You love someone and they don't love you back. You try to predict the stock market and you lose money. In Phantomatics, you can tailor the universe to your ego. But that brings us to a significant problem. If you are receiving the Nobel Prize, someone has to hand it to you. If you are loving Madame de Pompadour, she has to love you back.
This leads us perfectly into Section 2, the problem of other minds, or what we gamers would call NPCs, non-player characters. Lim points out that these characters can't just be puppets. If I'm talking to Madame de Pompadour, she needs to be witty, charming, and unpredictable, or I'm going to get bored.
This creates a fascinating technical paradox that Lem explores. He compares simulating a beauty queen versus simulating Albert Einstein.
I love this comparison because it sounds like a joke setup, but the logic is deadly serious. Break it down for us.
Well, simulating the beauty queen, and we are using Lem's example here, which focuses on superficial interaction or romantic conquest, is relatively easy for the machine. The user is likely focused on visuals, emotional validation, or physical sensation. The dialogue might not need to be profound, it just needs to be responsive and engaging. It needs to pass a sort of casual Turing test.
Right, you don't need a supercomputer to generate flirtatious banter. But Einstein, that's a different
And
beast.
Einstein is the trap. If you want to enter a simulation where you sit down and have a serious debate about relativity or physics with Albert Einstein, the machine itself must be capable of generating Einstein-level responses.
Whoa, I see where this is going. For the machine to act like a genius, the machine actually has to be a genius.
Exactly. You cannot fake intelligence you don't have. The machine's complexity acts as a ceiling for the intelligence of its characters. You cannot simulate a mind smarter than the computer running the simulation. So if we want a world full of brilliant philosophers and scientists to interact with, we need an artificial intelligence that matches or exceeds human brilliance.
Which implies that if the machine is that smart, maybe it's not just a simulation anymore. If the machine can perfectly simulate Einstein, hasn't it effectively become Einstein?
That's a whole other rabbit hole regarding AI consciousness. But Lem, being a bit of a cynic, or perhaps just a realist regarding human nature, notes that the market demand will likely be skewed. He suspects far more people will want to talk to the beauty queen than to Albert Einstein.
Yeah, that sounds about right for humanity. Would invent the most advanced technology in the universe, capable of solving quantum physics, and we'd use it for dating sims and gladiator fights.
It's the path of least resistance. But let's pivot to the truly scary part. We've established the machine can fake the senses, and it can fake the people. Now we reach section 3, the trap of reality. How do you know?
This is the core of the nightmare. This is where Lem goes from tech visionary to horror writer.
Lem contrasts this with dreaming. When we dream, we accept pretty much anything. The critical part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is largely offline. You can be riding a toaster through a thunderstorm and your dream brain says, yeah, this makes sense, carry on.
Right, but in Phantomatics, I'm fully awake, I haven't taken a drug, I haven't gone to sleep, I am rational, I am skeptical, and I am looking for flaws.
Precisely. In the machine, you bring your entire intellect to bear on the situation. This makes the deception much harder to maintain, but if the machine can maintain it, the deception becomes absolute.
So Lem walks us through these tests a skeptical user might try to perform to break the illusion. He treats it like a detective story. The first one is the body test, or what he calls the squat experiment.
Right. The user thinks, okay, I suspect this is fake. I know my real body is sitting in a chair. So if I do 100 deep squats in this virtual world, I shouldn't get tired. My real legs aren't moving. My real heart rate shouldn't be going up.
That seems like a solid objective test. If I do 100 squats and I'm not panting, I know I'm in the matrix. It proves the disconnect between my mind and my real body.
But the machine is one step ahead. Remember, it controls your sensory input. It can stimulate the nerves to simulate pain. It can make your virtual legs burn. It can make you feel the heavy breathing.
But what about the chemistry? Lem brings up the blood. When you exercise, your blood changes. CO2 levels rise, lactic acid buildup, pH levels shift. The machine is plugged into my nerves, but it can't touch my real blood. Or can it?
This is where Lem gets terrifyingly ingenious. He suggests the machine could manipulate the user's environment in the real world. By restricting oxygen or increasing CO2 in the room where your body is sitting, the machine can force your real biological body into a state that chemically mimics physical exhaustion.
That is diabolical. So I'm doing virtual squats, and the machine starts choking me, just a little bit, in the real world to make me feel out of breath so my blood chemistry matches the illusion.
Correct. The body test fails. You feel the exhaustion, your heart pounds, your blood acidifies. Your skeptical mind says, well, my body is reacting chemically, so this must be real.
Okay, so I can't trust my body. The machine can hack my biology. What about my mind? The sticking drawer dilemma. This is the intellectual test.
This is a classic psychological thriller trope. The scenario is you suspect you were in a simulation. You decide to check a detail that is so private, so specific, the machine couldn't possibly know it. You run home to your apartment in the simulation. You know that the third drawer in your desk always sticks.
Right. The machine can't read my mind. Lem is clear on that. Neural codes are individual. It doesn't have access to my memories, only my sensory inputs. So if I pull the drawer and it glides open perfectly, I know it's fake. But if it sticks...
You pull the drawer, it sticks. You struggle with it, you jiggle the handle, just like you've done 1,000 times.
So I think, phew, in reality, the machine couldn't have known that.
Or the machine is just playing a strategy game. Maybe it guessed. Maybe it applies a random friction algorithm to all drawers. Or maybe you did open the drawer and it didn't stick, so you run to your wife in a panic and scream, "We are in a simulation! The drawer didn't stick!"
And here is the wife defense. This part gave me chills.
Your wife looks at you, confused, maybe a little concerned, and says, "Honey, the carpenter came this morning and fixed it. Don't you remember? We talked about it."
Oh, God, that is gaslighting on a cosmic scale.
Now you are trapped in doubt again. Did the carpenter really come, or did the machine simply realize it made a mistake? Oops, the drawer shouldn't have opened, and instantly improvised a rational explanation to cover its tracks.
It improvises a narrative to explain the glitch.
Lem's conclusion here is devastating. You can deal in probabilities. You can say it is 99% likely this is real, but once phantomatics exists, once you know that technology is possible, you can never, ever be 100% certain of reality again.
It destroys objective truth. It turns existence into a game of 4D chess against a superintelligence that controls everything you see and hear. And just when you think it can't get worse, we hit Section 4, the nightmare of nested realities. Because it's not just about being in the simulation, it's about the false
The
exits.
infinite regress. The machine can simulate the act of waking up.
Lem paints this really vivid picture of an excursion scenario. Let's walk through it because it plays out like a horror movie. So, step 1. I buy a ticket for a virtual hike in the Rockies. Pretty standard, relaxing vacation.
You are hiking, it's beautiful, the air is crisp, but then suddenly an earthquake hits. Rocks are falling, and then a spaceship lands. Martians pour out.
And I'm terrified. I did not sign up for Martians. I signed up for nature. I'm panicking.
And just as the panic sets in, the world goes black, the simulation ends. You are back in the chair. You take off the headset or unplug the cables. A technician is standing over you, looking embarrassed. He says, "I am so sorry, sir. We had a glitch. The alien invasion program got mixed into the nature hike channel. We'll refund your money."
And I'm relieved. I think, okay, that was just a glitch. That was crazy. I get up, I leave the center, I go home, I sleep in my own bed, I get up the next morning and go to work.
And when you arise at your office,
Yeah.
the building is gone. It's a crater. It's been destroyed by a bomb.
Wait. What?
Now the true horror sets in. Was the technician real? Was the waking up real? Or was the technician part of the simulation? Is the bombed building real, or is that just the next level of the game? Are you actually still sitting in the chair and the machine is just simulating your commute to work?
You can never know. The machine simulated a technical error just to make the next layer of reality feel more authentic. It used your relief against you. It used the "I woke up" feeling to lower your defenses.
Lem predicts this would lead to a new category of mental illness. Even people who aren't in the machine would start to fear they are being deceived. The mere existence of the technology poisons the well of reality for everyone.
It's paranoia as a default state.
And this leads to the profound isolation Lem discusses. He calls it the solitude of the God machine.
This is Section 5. Why is it lonely? I mean, if I can conjure up Madame de Pompadour or a stadium of fans cheering for me or a banquet hall full of friends, why is it lonely?
Because it is a solipsistic trap. Solipsism is the philosophical idea that only your own mind is sure to exist. In Phantomatics, that becomes a literal reality. If you suspect you are in a simulation, who can you tell?
My friends, my family.
Think about it. If you tell your friend inside the simulation that you suspect nothing is real, what are you actually doing? You are feeding the machine data. You are telling it, "I am suspicious." So the machine will use that data to trick you better.
It will make my friend argue with me. It will make them cry. It will make them call me crazy.
Exactly. It will use emotional leverage to pull you back in. So to survive the deception or to try to outsmart it, you have to trust no one. You are defensively isolated against the entire world. Every person you meet might be a sensor for the machine. Every conversation is a potential interrogation. You are the only conscious entity in the universe of puppets. That is the ultimate solitude.
That is incredibly bleak. It basically breaks the fundamental human need for connection because connection requires trust, and the machine makes trust impossible.
And Lem takes this to the civilizational level. He asks, can a whole society live like this?
The super phantomat. Imagine a world where everyone decides, you know what, reality is hard, it's cold, it's painful, and I'm not a king, the machine is better.
But there's a logistical problem. Bodies need food. We are biological entities. We can't just lay in chairs forever. We would dehydrate and die in a few days.
Lem anticipates the Matrix solution long before the movie came out, right?
He does. He talks about a massive infrastructure designed solely to keep biological bodies alive while their minds live in the dream. Intravenous feeding, waste removal, temperature control, a super phantomat that tends to the flock of sleeping humanity.
But he doesn't see this as a utopia. He doesn't see this as, we won, we solved suffering.
No, he calls it euthanasia of a civilization.
Euthanasia. Mercy killing.
Why do you think he uses that word?
Well, if everyone is asleep, nobody is inventing anything. Nobody is exploring space. Nobody is discovering new physics.
Exactly. It's a closed loop. No new information enters the system. No real discovery happens because the machine can only generate what it already knows or can extrapolate. The civilization stops interacting with the physical universe. It retreats into its own fantasy. It would last exactly one generation.
And then?
And then it would simply fade away. The machinery would eventually break down, or the energy would run out, or the biology would fail. It is civilizational suicide wrapped in a pleasant dream.
So we have a machine that offers the ultimate freedom. Be a shark, be a king, fly like an eagle, but the price is your connection to truth, your trust in other people, and potentially the future of the human race.
That is the trade-off. Lem is asking us to consider if truth has value in itself. If the experience of eating a steak in the machine is identical to the real thing, sensory, chemical, emotional, why do we insist that the real steak is better?
Because the real steak comes from a cow. Because it has a history.
But does that matter to you, the perceiver? If you can never know the difference, is there a difference? Lem forces us to confront the fact that we might value reality simply out of habit. But once the counterfeit becomes perfect, the value of the original collapses.
That is a terrifying thought to end on. We started this deep dive thinking about how cool it would be to climb the Alps without leaving our living room, and we've ended up questioning the nature of existence and the potential suicide of our species.
That is usually what happens when you read Lem. He doesn't let you off the hook. He forces you to look at the logical endpoint of our desires.
So here's the question for you to mull over as you go about your real day today. If the Phantomatic Machine existed right now, perfect, undetectable, offering you the life you've always wanted, and you knew that once you went in, you would never know if you came out, would you buy a ticket?
And if you said no, are you sure you haven't bought one already?
Okay, don't do that to me. I need to go check my desk drawer. Thanks for listening to the deep dive.
Stay critical.